If there's no dissent votes, the motion will pass unanimously. And councillors, just please be aware to activate your microphone when you have been acknowledged to speak. We'll start this morning's meeting in the usual way with the opening prayer. Dear Lord, help us in our deliberation today so that our decisions will be for the greater good for the whole of the Kempsey Shire. Amen.
Amen.
And Council acknowledges that this meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Dunghutti people. I'll also welcome Lockie from the Argus. There is a media table up here if you would like to come and sit up there. I think this is the first time you've joined our council meeting, so you get a special place to sit. So thank you for coming today. We have no apologies or applications for leave by any of the councillors. We're all present. Item number 4 is the confirmation of minutes, which have been distributed, I believe. Do I have a mover?
Move that way, Madam Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Morris. I wasn't.
Madam Mayor.
Right. Did you have your light? Actually, the reason is I can't see your light. So if you could just move your light that way, that would be fantastic.
Then you can't.
Well, then you can't. I can't hear him speak. Yes, I can see it now. Councillor Horville.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of questions about the minutes. I don't have any amendments. At the beginning of the meeting, Councillor McGinn raised a point of order about me not wearing my headset. And you suspended the meeting while I went and collected them, which I thank you very much for doing. That doesn't appear in the minutes. Is that not essential?
Through Madam Mayor, yeah, that's not really essential to be recorded.
Thank you. And the in the minutes, the prayer and recognition wording have been put there in the minutes since the beginning of council 4 years ago, but they're no longer being put in. Is there a reason for that, please, Mr. or whoever has a reason for that, please?
Yeah, that was what was decided in the councillor workshop.
Thank you.
Any dissent? Oh, Councillor Morris.
It's no dissent, but I'd like to move an amendment. And that amendment is to add a point 2. And that is that in the event that the minutes are changed due to a submission by a council or a review by the staff, a copy of the revised minutes are forwarded to councillors within 48 hours of such change being implemented. The reason why, I suppose if I've got a seconder, I'll speak to it, but to the amendment, but if I haven't got a seconder, I won't.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
It's been seconded by Councillor Hall.
Madam Mayor, the reason why I move this is because the last couple of meetings there have been revisions of the minutes after they have been put out in draft format. Some of them have been implemented by staff reviews. Some of them have been implemented by requests by council. When we got the agenda for the meeting this time, the minutes were considerably different, which prompted some further requests for amendments by myself. I had some, but I just didn't have time to prepare them beforehand. But when the minutes come out, they varied somewhat. I believe that it would be beneficial that if there are a change to the minutes, that they are distributed to the councillors as soon as possible, in case there are other changes that might prompt, or that if some of the councillors disagree with some of those suggestions or changes that have been implemented.
Councillor McGinn.
Madam Mayor, could I request from Bruce that it's 2 working days rather than 48 hours? Because if it was a Friday, for some reason there was work, it'd be much better to have 2 business days.
I'd expect that it could probably be done a lot more expeditiously than that, but I'd be happy with 2 working days. As long as by 2 working days doesn't mean we get it after the council meeting.
Question, Madam Mayor, on the issue, please.
Yes, Councillor.
Madam Mayor, Mr. General Manager, can you make comment, please, on that proposed amendment?
Mr. Thorogood may want to add to this, but when we get information in from the councillors on the minutes, we normally won't make those changes until just before we publish the actual paper. So if we send out the minutes tomorrow, someone sends the suggested changes in the next day, we wouldn't be making those changes until February.
Mr. General Manager, my amendment read that when the minutes are varied, that we get notified, not when the requests for the variation are submitted. Now, if that means they come out later, well and good, but there are 4 revisions. This is revision 4 of the minutes that we're considering this time. We have seen 3 of those revisions. I don't know what the 3rd one was. We had the original ones. We had revision 1 that was sent out with the business paper. We had revision 3 that was a minor amendment, and revision 4 that was put out late last night.
Mr. Thorogood might make some comments on that.
Yeah, Councillor Morris is correct. There were 4 revisions to this month's or to last month's minutes. The first was the revision that was distributed immediately following the meeting that same week. Revision 2 was the revision that was distributed with the business paper. Revision 3 was distributed by Melanie Peterson earlier or late last week after Councillor Horville pointed out the typos in his question on notice, and revision 4 was the one that I distributed yesterday. So in this instance, all of those were distributed within 48 hours of the changes being made.
Question on that, Madam Mayor, please.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to the General Manager. Will this make any difference to the decisions that have been made by Council in the Council meeting?
Through Madam Mayor, no.
And through you, Madam Mayor, I note that this month that has happened, previous months that hasn't happened, and it hasn't been as effective as that. But I think that streamlines it so the councillors would then be looking at the minutes well in advance, hopefully well in advance of the meeting.
So that was closing debate. Okay, I put the amendment. All in favour of the amendment? All against? Oh, sorry. Okay. Any dissent on the amendment? The amendment's been lost. We go back to the original motion.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Yes, councillor.
I haven't. Could I see the voting on that, please?
Yes, it will come up on the screen shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's actually wrong.
I think it was Councillor Williams.
That's still not right.
There's something happening actually. So it's not filling in.
Yeah, there is a system thing going on at the minute that's not letting us do this properly. That's got it.
I think we have it now. Thank you, Mr. Thorogood. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're back to the original motion. Is there any dissent on the original motion? Thank you, councillors. That's been carried. Any disclosures of interest? Councillor McGinn, Councillor Patterson, and myself.
Yeah, I'd like to declare a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest on matter 11.3, as I know I socialise with someone that's in one of those items. And also non-significant, non-pecuniary matter in 11.3, as I know some of the contractors listed.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest in item 11.3, as I know some of the contractors and business owners.
I have a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in 11.3, as there are 2 of the contractors that I have social and contact with on a regular basis. Councillor Saul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish to also record a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest in 9.1, the SALEYARDS management, as I have property nearby the SALEYARDS.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Shields.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, in 9.1, a non-significant non-pecuniary interest as a stakeholder in the SALEYARDS due to our business.
Got Councillor Horville.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest in 8.1, the report on the Traffic Committee, as I was a teacher at the school, in Alderville Public School, in 29 years ago.
Thank you, Councillor. So that was our disclosures of interest. We move to item number 6, which is items passed by exception. Do we have any questions or removal? I request that first up that we remove item 11.1, which is in the legal matters. Councillor Morris.
Do we need somebody to move the?
Move that way, Madam Mayor.
Second that.
Yeah.
I move it with the exclusion of 9.3, 9.4, 9.9, 9.12 and 11.3.
Can you please repeat that slowly, please?
9.3, 9.4, 9.9, 9.12 and 11.3.
Madam Mayor.
Councillor Horville.
Madam Mayor, I apologise for not being able to Zoom to the public forum yesterday. We had no power here, but the I believe we had a speaker on the minutes of the local traffic committee. Does that automatically remove that from the items passed by exception?
No.
Okay, well, I'll remove 8.1 if I may. And 9.5.
That's been removed.
No, it hasn't.
Oh, no, it hasn't.
Okay, 9.8. 9.10 or 9.10. And what was 11.2 removed? I forget, Madam Mayor.
No, it hasn't.
I'll remove that as well, please. Thank you.
Okay, so for items by exception now we have 9.6, 9.7 and 9.11 and 9.13. Do I have any questions? Councillor, I'll take Councillor Baxter, then Councillor Morris.
Oops,
Thank you, Chair. Just a question on 9.6, the Mid-North Coast report or update. Can I just ask the General Manager on page 31, the bottom of the page there, Destination North Coast is participating in 2 local jobs programs, task forces that are to be run by the department and for local jobs tailored to accelerate reskilling, upskilling and employment. Can I just ask you whether that's definitely happening in our valley? Or is that something?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's certainly happening across the coast, and it would depend on the process they use as to which businesses would actually take up that offer.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Councillor Morris.
Short question on the same report. The comment about the Thermomix incentive with obviously a conference being held. Is there any indication as to where that conference might be held? Is it within the JO area or preferably within Kempsey?
Through Madam Mayor, I'm not aware of the actual location of that at this point in time.
Any further questions? Councillor
Yes, Madam
Morris?
Mayor. Sorry.
Councillor Horville.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could I ask some questions about 9.7, the development contributions update, please?
Thank you, Councillor.
The contributions that we received or foregone it says that we, at the bottom of page 33, the foregone contributions to be in the order of $800,000 over 5 years. Would the major part of those contributions have been from MACLEAY Valley Village, which undertook a huge building program?
Through you, Madam Mayor, without having a detailed breakdown, I would make the assumption that would be a large part of it.
Right. And the other one, Mr. General Manager, possibly through you, Madam Mayor, would be the problem with sewage provision in Fredericton. We did have a effort to have a subdivision put in, but it had to be knocked back at Fredericton because of the lack of sewage facilities for that development. Would that have made a big difference to our result if that had progressed, or would that have been even more foregone contributions?
Get Mr. Fish to make a comment on that.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Hall, that was a rezoning area of land, so that was bringing, that would have then potential to bring, I guess, additional lots into the Fredericton area. So it's, I guess, different to a development application.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I just
Thank you, Councillor. You've asked your question. Have you got another question?
no, Madam Mayor, I was just thanking the
That's okay.
my question.
Thanked him. Thank you. Okay. Any dissent on what we have in front of us? No dissent. That's been passed. Thank you, councillors. We will move on to 9.1.
8.1.
Sorry, 8.1. We've got the minutes. That was withdrawn.
Move that way, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Have I got a seconder? Councillor Morris has his light on.
I had it on ages ago, and I said move that way before Councillor Patterson.
You can second it.
I don't care.
It was removed. Do I have a question? Councillor Horval.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have some questions. I actually might have some amendments. Could we actually look at the minutes, please? It's 8.1.
Madam Mayor, can I ask a question, please?
Just a moment, Councillor Horval.
Can we even move an amendment of
I just want
this
getting some
jurisdiction?
clarification before we go any further.
Through you, Madam Mayor, these are minutes of an external committee. We don't have the ability to actually change the actual minutes of those of that particular meeting.
Question, Madam, Mr. General Manager, if I may.
Thank you, Councillor Horval.
Madam Mayor, through you to the General Manager, it is possible for us to refer something back to the Traffic Committee for further investigation. Is that possible?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, Council can make a decision and make a resolution to refer things to the Traffic Committee. It just cannot change the minutes.
No, of course not. Thank you, General Manager. So could I ask my questions, Madam Mayor?
Yes, certainly.
The concern is on page, I've got page numbered, sorry. Yeah, it's on page 18 according to my iPad, and it's about the pedestrian facilities, Eden Street Shared Pathway, West Kempsey. And it's talking about having two crossings, one across Sydney Street and then one further down across Eden Street. My question is, why could there not be just one crossing between Kemp Street and Sydney Street, which would eliminate having to have two? Has that been considered by the Traffic Committee?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, it's actually noted in the minutes that the option of a pedestrian refuge in the mid-block crossing was investigated and was assessed as to being unsuitable for the site due to the carriageway with constraints.
Okay, so the carriageway would have to be widened. It would cost.
Councillor,
I'm asking a question,
have
Madam
you got
Mayor.
another question?
Yes, I'm asking a question, Madam Mayor.
Yes, next question is.
The question is about that feasibility. Would it have been a greater cost to do that widening at that point and putting the shared bicycle and pathway in than to put in the two crossings?
Mr. Fish? Yeah, sorry, we'll just take that one on notice. My understanding is those sorts of considerations will be made by the traffic committee, and I would have looked at the numbers of people moving across that carriageway and determined that these were the two best locations for the actual crossings.
All right, thank you, Mr. General Manager. I'd also like to ask some questions about the Alderville Public School situation and the safety of crossing to the western side. I apologise because I was unable to be at the meeting last night and I didn't hear the presentation.
Your question, please.
I'm apologising, Madam Mayor, but thank you. I'm asking a question when I find it, and it's here somewhere. Can you tell me what page Alderville Public School 1 was on, please?
Page 4 and 5.
Page 4 and 5, right at the top. Thank you very much. I say, well, there's no page numbers. It's just, I'm going to the top again. I apologise for keeping everyone waiting. Yeah, pedestrian safety, Alderville Primary School. Found it. The cost or consideration of a western side footpath, that was said that it would require a lot of money. Has that been costed at all?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Hall, there's some, I guess there's some shorter and longer term considerations there. I'm not aware that detailed costings have been done yet, but that would certainly be, I guess, a future consideration now the traffic committee's now considered this item, and there's shorter and longer term recommendations that have come out of these minutes. Yes,
I understand that. Thank you, Mr. Fish. So the consideration in the future is to put angle parking in, and that would mean a road widening. It would mean acquisition of land. What have you got a broad figure on that? What sort of costing would be involved there?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, there'd be potentially be a narrow strip of land. It would be subject to valuation at that time, based on the obviously the value of the land. So at this point in time, I don't have an estimate of that figure.
The landowner might donate the land, but yeah, that's a possibility.
Next question, Councillor.
Thank you. I'm sorry to make comments, Madam Mayor. I'll move an amendment then to the minutes, Madam Mayor.
You can't move an amendment to the minutes, Councillor.
No, not to the minutes, to the motion, Madam Mayor.
You can do the recommendation, but not to the minutes.
Yes, so the recommendation is to note it, and I'll continue on with that. That point 2, the first point, note the minutes. Number 2, council investigate costs associated with road widening at Alderville Public School and investigate opportunities for grant funding. So I'll read that again, Madam Mayor.
I just wait to see what we've got put up.
I can't hear anything, Madam Mayor, sorry.
We're just waiting for it to be put up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the amendment is that council, the addition is an amendment. Council investigate the cost associated with road widening at Alderville Public School and investigate opportunities for grant funding. In actual fact, there probably needs to be a foreshadowed motion because this hasn't come up in any way in the minutes, or it'd be new business before council.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. It's actually exactly the same as point 4 of the committee's recommendation.
So
investigations of funding opportunities for the long-term improvement of
yes,
detailed
Councillor.
in this report.
So we're putting in something that's already there. Thank you. Which it wouldn't be new business before council we would best be putting in something that is already in the minutes. Okay, do I have a seconder?
Given that it's in the minutes, there's no point in pursuing it as a separate
that has lapsed.
It's already a recommendation in the minutes.
Yes, it's lapsed due to no seconder. Councillor Morris, you have your light on.
I have my light on because I have a question,
yes,
which
certainly
may lead to an amendment. It probably doesn't need an amendment, but I'd just like to ask the question, can the local traffic committee minutes in the future have page numbers included on the pages to facilitate in the navigation of the document?
Thank you, councillor.
That's needed as an amendment. I'm happy to move this amendment. If it's just going to happen, I'm happy to leave it just happen.
I think the General Manager has just advised, well, I don't think, it's just been advised that that will happen.
Yeah, I guess, councillors, there is actually page numbers. If you look at the top of the page, it says LTC 9, or the page I'm on at the moment. So that is actually the page number, but I will make it a bit, we will change the format so it is actually clearer that that's a page number.
It's just the formatting. Thank you. Any dissent on item 8.1? No dissent, that's been carried. Thank you, councillors. We move on to 9.1, which is the Saleyards Management Operational Model. There is a recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Patterson.
Second that, Madam Mayor.
It's been seconded by Councillor Saul. Councillor Morris, you have your light on. Is it for a question?
It's actually for an amendment,
okay.
Which means that somebody has to speak first.
I'll get Councillor Patterson to speak first.
Hi.
Madam Mayor, could I move a procedural motion, please?
Yes, councillor.
I would like to move a procedural motion that speeches be limited to 2 minutes for today's meeting.
So you're taking into account 10.24, which
I'm taking into account the agenda for today.
Yes. Okay. Do I have a seconder for that procedural motion? Councillor Morris. Do I have any dissent on that? That's been carried.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, councillor.
Dissent, I assume that you would ask for people to speak against it if it's moved. Can you speak against a procedural motion?
Just one moment.
Madam Mayor, if there's going to be a speaker against, I'll very briefly speak for it.
Thank you. You're reserving your right for now. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Councillor McGinn.
Oh, Madam Mayor, I'm moving this procedural motion because we've got quite a lot to get through today, and I'm aware that there are other things happening this afternoon. I'd like to actually take the words out of Councillor Morris's notice of motion later in the day, which is very well written. So apologies for copying your wording, Councillor Morris. But the reason I'm suggesting that speeches be limited to 2 minutes is because 2 minutes is ample time on the basis that it is possible to prosecute a case with a well-prepared speech within 2 minutes.
Thank you, Councillor McGinn. Councillor Horval, and then I'll take Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I don't see that we're going to ever have a need to expedite a meeting because very few councillors speak for more than a minute. Sometimes people, when there's a very complicated issue, will speak longer than 2 minutes. It's a very, very rare occurrence if you look back over the time of council meetings that the shortening of speeches would anyway expedite council meeting, and we should have full consideration and full input from all councillors on what they expect about each item. And at the moment it's 5 minutes. Reducing it by 3 minutes means that there's an opportunity, if there's a complicated matter, for a person to be cut short. And so I would suggest we don't affirm this procedural motion, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morris.
I'd like to speak in favour of it. I wholeheartedly believe in the words that I put in the notice of motion that we'll be considering later on. I'd dearly like to see it changed. And in reviewing the agenda for today, I do not see any items that have a degree of complexity that I believe would warrant a longer time than the 2 minutes. If there was, I'd be asking for a reconsideration for those particular items to remain at 5 minutes, but the general items to be at 2.
Thank you, Councillor. Any dissent? Thank you. There's one dissent that will go up on the board very shortly. That's been passed. So, Councillor Patterson, we're at 9.1. You were going to speak for...
Making sure I'm within 2 minutes.
You've got 2 minutes. Thanks, councillors.
Speaking on 9.1, it's a great move forward for the management and the operation of the Saleyards, and I commend the work done by council staff on this item.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Morris, and then I'll take Councillor Horville.
Madam Mayor, I would like to move an amendment. It's only a minor amendment. I agree with Councillor Patterson's comments that we do need to move this forward, and what we're looking at is most likely the right approach. I would like to change the first paragraph. Instead of to say come back to council for award of contract, come back to council for consider awarding the contract. The reason why, in fact, if I get a seconder, I can speak to it.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor McGinn.
The reason why I say that is because if you go to page, I can't see the page number, page 9, the second last paragraph, it concludes with subject to council resolving to award the tender. I believe that yes, we will be awarding the tender, but we don't know what the results are going to come back of the tender. We shouldn't be locking it into saying we are going to award it until we've considered what they are. And that consideration allows us that if the tenders are not favourable to council, we can choose not to award it at the time and to look for other options.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Yes, Councillor.
To consider the award of the tender.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the General Manager, what would this mean to the motion?
And now I'll take Councillor Hall.
Through Madam Mayor, we have no issues with that whatsoever.
Okay, so where we're at now is Councillor Patterson has agreed to accept that into the motion, but that needs to be recorded that Councillor, and you're happy with that, Councillor Morris. Thank you. Councillor Horville.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a question about protecting the future of the Kempsey Regional Saleyards. So my question, I guess, is to Mr. Fishel, the General Manager, if possible. We need to protect whoever gets the tender further down the track. We would, if we decide to go that way, resolve to go that way, we should have a legal protection, and I'm just wondering how we can do it to make sure that the fees and charges aren't put up to such a level that people abandon our regional saleyards. So on page 10 of the document in the report, it actually talks about the rating of the Kempsey Regional Saleyards operating models. And the second item in that table is potential financial impact to stakeholders. And in the comment, it says fees and charges are expected to rise under both operating models. However, it's possible that fees may be slightly higher under a lease model. Is there any way we can protect that it's only slightly higher and not a lot more? Is there any protection we can put in any tender document, please?
Mr. Mitchell.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Horville, the draft lease agreement that will be prepared to accompany the tender that goes out will have a number of protections in it, one of which will obviously about making sure that there's the ongoing operation of the saleyards in their location within the Shire. Very hard to, in a market-driven business, to be dictating what prices other operators may choose to charge in relation to the operation of that business. The comment in the report about under both models, the pricing needing to increase is probably a reflection, obviously, as we've talked about in the past, around the financial results from the saleyards. We don't know what prices a potential lessee would charge if they were to be leasing and operating the sale yards because of their own operating cost structures and how they run the business. We've only flagged that up, I guess, in terms of being fully transparent and conservative around that there is a risk around that. We don't know if that risk will actually transpire. And I guess when you have a market-driven business like this and you're leasing it out, it does become very difficult to put in controls around what they can and can't charge.
A follow-up question, if I may, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, on that topic, please.
Thank you. I'll take Councillor Horwell's follow-on and then Councillor Saul.
Any question?
Thank you for that very good answer, Mr. Mitchell. The possibility of, again, I'm looking at the worst case scenario of fees being jacked up by a huge number under with the lease company if we did award it. Is there a protection for council to somehow shorten the lease or close the lease if we're not happy with what or not satisfied with what's happening at the sale yards?
Sorry. Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, all contractual agreements such as this, Councillor Horwell, would have dispute resolution clauses, would also have termination clauses that would exist for both the lessor and the lessee. And so we are in the process of drafting that lease agreement. And so those sorts of items would be taken into consideration to make sure that council's interests and indeed the interests of the broader community are protected. And that's what we've referred to in this report.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Saul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, just a question on this subject for the former councillor. Madam Mayor, in a competing market, market forces dictate pricing. No business can outprice itself and stay viable. So I think the intention of saying it's going to be jumping up and up and up is extreme. I think market forces would dictate what suppliers and vendors will pay.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
I believe that's the case.
Point of order, Councillor Horwell, which is?
Well, I was wondering, is that a question or was that it speaking for or against? I wasn't sure, Madam Mayor.
The question. It was. I'll uphold that, but I'm just going to give Councillor Saul the opportunity to ask
Madam
the
Mayor,
question.
the question will be: doesn't council believe market forces will dictate the pricing on fees and charges?
Through Madam Mayor, yes.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, I agree with the General Manager's comments. Additionally, in some of the other councils who have recently leased sale yards, we haven't seen that issue play out in that there's been a significant increase in the fees and charges that have been charged. So that issue hasn't arisen in other councils who have gone down a similar path to what's proposed as part of this paper.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? There's no other questions. Any dissent on the recommendation? There's no dissent. It's been passed. Thank you, councillors. 9.2, which is the voluntary planning agreement, 600 Macleay Valley Way. There is a recommendation. Do I have a mover?
Move that way, Madam Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Saul. Seconded by Councillor McGinn. Do I have any questions? Councillor Morris. And then Councillor Horwell.
Just a question that I had last night. How does the quantum of charges within the VPA for 556 Macleay Valley Way, which is a development that is proposed of a similar function to 600 Macleay Valley Way, how do they compare? Or what are the charges? What were the charges within the VPA?
Mr. Fish.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, so for the joint or the nearby development, within the planning agreement that was in place at that site, the contribution or the amount for water supply within that VPA was 200,000. There wasn't an amount for sewer due to on-site provisions being part of that development, and obviously the basis of that is on the infrastructure required to obviously service that land.
A follow-on question, Madam Mayor. In the event that 556 Macleay Valley Way goes ahead now that we've got pressure sewer, will they be requested to connect to the pressure sewer? And if they do, will there be a cost contribution to council for that beyond the normal Section 64 contribution?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the current development application there is for on-site treatment. They would certainly have the option of connecting, and should they wish to connect, then they would need to make a contribution plus the 64 contributions as well.
Councillor Horwell, is yours a question? Because Councillor Saul's reserved right to speak.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I also have an amendment, if I may. Madam Mayor,
I'll just take your question, and then I'll get Councillor Saul to reserve his right to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry to interrupt you. The voluntary planning agreement is to have an explanatory note according to the New South Wales legislation. In this VPA, it shows the explanatory note directs you to the appendix. My understanding of the law or the rules of voluntary planning agreements was that an explanatory note was to be a separate document. Why is that not so?
General Manager.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. We've had legal advice in preparing this voluntary planning agreement, and that Lindsay Taylor lawyers, I guess, considered the expert with regard to planning agreements. So I would certainly take their advice in terms of how this is formatted as being correct.
Okay. So according to my understanding of a voluntary planning agreement, could you spell out to Council, please, what the public benefit of this voluntary planning agreement is?
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, it's the provision of the obviously the required infrastructure to that particular site to service it.
So how is that a public benefit? I don't understand. If you could explain it better, please.
It's the public benefit directly is the public don't have to pay for the service actually being provided to that site. It's actually being provided by the developer.
Oh, okay, that's a real positive. Thank you. My other question is, there's a notification period and people may make submissions. How will they be considered, and will there be a report to councillors on those submissions?
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Fish.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, per the recommendation, obviously it'll be on notification for 28 days. Any submissions that are made will be considered, and then a decision made in accordance with what council resolves today. At the moment, there's a recommendation to delegate to the General Manager to execute the agreement if the General Manager is satisfied that there's no further changes required as a result of any submissions during the notification period. So it'll be dependent on the submissions received.
Thank you.
Madam
Mayor, I'd like to move amendment.
Just a moment.
Yeah, we're going to go to Councillor
I'm going
Saul.
to Councillor Saul because he has the reserved right to speak. And then I will take Councillor Hall, and then I'll take Councillor Morris.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, we need to pursue this VPA. It's going to be another step in the cog to get some development for our Shire. And like I said earlier, it's important that we support this because it is, again, a way forward. So I hope councillors can consider this. What it is, the VPA, and it has been spelled out in this chamber today that the developer is paying the costs. And I think it's a significant public benefit when we have some decent development on that side.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Horville.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In light of what was just reported, I'd like to move an amendment and replace point 3 of the motion, Madam Mayor, with submissions be brought to Council with recommendation for further action. Straightforward. Submissions be brought to Council with recommendation for further action.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it for discussion purposes, but yeah, what further action should be for endorsement or something like that?
Yes. May I speak to it very quickly, Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I was thinking that I don't expect a great number of submissions, but if there were, it then leaves the general manager having to make the decision by himself or with the senior members of council or staff. And so I'm considering that if it comes back to us in February or March, and the recommendation is to do what is in number 3, I can't see why we couldn't support it. But as our duty to oversight the actions of council, I think it's a pretty straightforward thing that we bring the submissions back to councils, councils read them, and we go with what is recommended by the general manager to us to proceed further if that's what the submissions bring out for us.
Councillor Morris?
So I've another question.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I can't hear.
Oh, okay. So it's unrelated to the amendment. Sorry. So we have an amendment. Okay.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Yes, councillor.
I couldn't hear any comments. Someone must have been talking without a microphone on. Do I hear what was said, please?
Yes, Councillor Morris had his microphone on, and I had called him to speak after your amendment, and I called him to speak again, and Councillor Morris indicated that he was not speaking, his question wasn't related to the amendment, and so he wasn't asking a question. He has since turned his microphone off.
Okay. Thank you very much for that information.
So we have an amendment. I have had a speaker for the amendment. No speakers against. I put the amendment. No, I don't put the amendment. I ask for any dissent on the amendment. The amendment has been lost, and I'll wait for that to go up. So the amendment has been lost. We're back to the original motion, and Councillor Morris has his microphone on. Thank you, Councillor Morris.
Madam Mayor, firstly, I'll ask a couple of questions that are unrelated to an amendment that I'm proposing, and then I'll propose an amendment. The first question is, after this period, and assuming that the General Manager sees that there is no further issues that need to be attended to, what is the process? Is the proponent then required to pay those fees to the council, and then after the payment of those fees, the gateway is processed, or is the gateway processed when they sign it before they paid the money?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, within the voluntary planning agreement, there is I guess it sets out for the timing of the making of the payments, which are, from memory, over a few stages as particular milestones are reached. Once in terms of the previous resolution of council from July 2019, once the VPA is in place, then we would give effect to the final planning proposal and obviously the rezoning. So payment wouldn't be contingent on that process occurring.
But payment would be liable and due to council, and council could pursue for that funding if for some reason they didn't pay and they didn't process.
Yes, so the VPA sets out the timing requirements of the payments.
So if they don't proceed to a DA, council can still pursue for those funds.
Well, if
they decide to sit on their hands and not proceed with it, can we?
If they didn't want to proceed, then I guess obviously they wouldn't make payment in that instance. Ultimately, the rezoning of the land has occurred in that regard. But yeah, certainly if they are wishing to proceed down the path of a DA, they will need to make the payments.
The amendment, Madam Mayor, is that that we change the period of public exhibition or public notification from 28 days to 42 days. I don't know when this will go on public notification, but assuming it did today or tomorrow, which is possible, it would close on the 12th of January. I think from now to the 12th of January, considering the holiday period and the number of public holidays, that would be unreasonable. And I think an extra 14 days, which would only take it out to Australia Day, would be more reasonable.
Madam Mayor, Mr. Fish might just have a comment on that in relation to the timing of the gateway proposal with the state government.
Madam Mayor, just in terms of the gateway, the current deadline is during February next year. So I guess any delay risk potentially needing to extend that gateway, which potentially that 42 days, that would be the case. Obviously, if we did have to report this ultimately back to council, we would have to seek an extension. Yeah, the 42 days would make it quite potentially difficult to meet the current deadlines of that gateway.
But would still be achievable if there are very few submissions and the general manager basically signs off on it on the 27th or the 28th of January. When is it in February that the gateway needs to be determined?
Yeah, council, I don't have the date in front of me at the moment, but it's during the course of February is my understanding.
So it would be achievable even with the 42 days, which would give the community a better opportunity to make any comments if they so desired.
It may be achievable. It just makes it more difficult, I guess, and puts more pressure on staff at that end of January period to pull the information together.
Question, Madam Mayor, please.
I have formally moved it as an amendment, so there's a second.
I need a seconder for the amendment.
I'll second it, Madam Mayor, but I'd also like to ask a question, if I may.
I've got Councillor Shields first, and then I'll take Councillor Horville.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. My question was just relating to when council was anticipating that the VPA would go on public exhibition.
Through Madam Mayor, we'd get that on as soon as possible, you know, potentially tomorrow.
Councillor Horville.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A simple solution to the timetable, I think, and I'm asking a question of the General Manager. Would an extraordinary council meeting dealing with this at the end of January expedite the delivery of it to the gateways process in the middle of February?
Through Madam Mayor, if it was a period of 42 days, that would take it nearly to the end of January. We need to then allow that there's public holidays, give a satisfactory notice for an extraordinary meeting. You know, it's all possible. It just adds to the pressure that isn't necessarily required.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager.
Councillor Baxter.
Just to speak against the amendment, Chair, 28 days or 4 weeks seems ample time for anybody who wants to write a submission about this VPA. And given what the director just said, and given the importance of this project as far as creating employment in the valley, I think we should take on board what the director just said and leave it at 28 days. I think that's ample time.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. Do I have any other further speakers for the amendment? Okay. Any dissent on the amendment? The amendment's lost. I'll just wait till those names go up. We're back to the original motion. I have no one's lights on. Any dissent on the original motion?
Not dissent, a quick question.
Yeah, okay. Question?
Through you, Madam Mayor, or through the General Manager, or to the General Manager, has there been any indication from the proponent as to the likely timeframe for the submission of a DA and the progressing of this service centre?
Through Madam Mayor, I haven't heard anything from them. Mr. Fish may have.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, I'd expect a DA would be likely soon after the completion of the rezoning process.
No closed debate, Madam Mayor.
And the timeframe for that is likely to be?
Well, we've got the gateway deadline, so I'd expect the rezoning process to be completed within that February period.
Councillor Saw, you've got your light on. You'd like to close debate?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, thank you for this. Like I said earlier, this is a wonderful step. Councillor Baxter and I are both in coordination with that. It's wonderful to see it going forward. This can bring a benefit to our Shire, a major benefit to our Shire. And we need not to micromanage this, I believe. So I hope this can go through in its present form. I have every trust in our planning staff that they're doing the right thing for our community. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Any dissent on the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor. It's been carried. We'll just wait for the names to go up. Seems to be something wrong, doesn't it? Yeah. So it can't be carried unanimously. There is a problem with the system here, so we might not wait. I might have to call them out. Anyway, we've got that. It's been carried. We're moving on to item 9.3. Thank you, Councillor McGinn. Seconded by Councillor Patterson. Do I have any questions? Councillor Morris has his light on.
Madam Mayor, I have a...
You're reserving your right to speak. You want to speak now, or do you want to wait till the question's been asked?
In the interest of efficiency, I won't speak now. I'll let the questions be asked.
Okay. Councillor Morris.
The question is more of an amendment. It's partly a question, partly amendment. The amendment is that under the schedule that has been forwarded to us, the mates on the Slim Dusty Centre draft fees and charges, that the fifth line in the venue hire fees, which states mates room dash hourly hire rate won by commercial agreement, be removed from the table. As was discussed last night, it is there in error. So therefore, seeing that we're adopting it and that is the attachment, I'm fully in favour of them, but we need to correct that error within that table.
Madam Mayor, just to back Councillor Morris, I was assuming that that change had been made to the document.
That's already been done.
Yeah, it's not made in the document. It's not made in the document that we're looking at, and it's not made on the document that's on Council's website.
It has been made overnight and it will be updated accordingly when it goes on exhibition.
So we have an amendment.
I won't speak to it, but I'm just asking a question for clarification. So it's done. So the amendment is unnecessary. Is that what I'm hearing from the General Manager?
Correct.
Thank you.
Do I have a seconder for the amendment? Thank you, Councillor Horville. So we have an amendment. Do you wish to speak to the amendment?
I'll just have a question of the General Manager. If the amendment is defeated, does that mean that that attachment cannot be changed?
No, the attachment's actually been changed. It was updated overnight, like I previously said. The recommendation is that the existing Slim Dusty fees and charges for the financial year be placed on exhibition. The ones that will be placed on exhibition are the ones with the amendment. There's no reference to the attachment in the actual recommendation.
Madam Mayor, may I ask a question as well, please?
You may ask a question. The amendment's been withdrawn. Are we able to withdraw the amendment? Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Morris. Yeah.
It needs to be recorded as being moved, seconded, and then withdrawn.
Yes. Councillor Horville, your question is?
Madam
It needs to be on the motion. We've got a withdrawn amendment.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I'm looking at the Slim Dusty Centre draft fees and charges, and I was unable to be there last night, so I'm not too sure what rate has been amended in the one that's been presented to us. So could someone clarify which bit has been changed, please?
General Manager.
Through Madam Mayor, it's the fifth line on table 1 has been removed. Table 2, sorry, has been removed.
So it's the mates room hourly hire rate, is it?
That's correct.
And so that won't be there at all?
It's already on line 1.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. So my next, another question, if I may, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
The rates are $50 for an hourly hire rate, and for a half day or 4 hours, it's $200. So it's still paying an hourly rate at the half day hire. Is there any reason why that amount of $200 couldn't be incentivised to, say, $180 so that people would want to hire for 4 hours and get the discount?
Through Madam Mayor, we're trying to stick with the fees that are currently there, that have been paid, and as the recommendation highlights, we'll actually be reviewing those prior to the fees and charges for the 2021-22 financial year.
No, thank you very much for that explanation.
Any dissent on the recommendation? There's no dissent. That's been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. 9.4, proposed natural disaster operational LEP clause. Thank you, Councillor Morris. Seconded by Councillor McGinn.
Madam Mayor, I just have a comment as I made last night.
Yes, Councillor.
I don't believe it needs to be as an amendment, but I'd just like to point out that for the community that are watching, that the zones will be included in that clause will be all zones within the Kempsey Local Environmental Plan, as opposed to, so we'll be certing all the local environmental, like Kempsey Local Environmental Plan 2013 zones to within that clause.
Thank you,
So more a
Councillor.
comment than.
Yeah, I understand that. Thank you for that. Okay, is there any dissent on this recommendation?
Madam Mayor, I have a question, please.
Yes, Councillor Horville.
It's in the natural disaster proposed clause. If I can just get it up. It's coming. I'm sorry to keep you. In point 2 of the draft clause, it says the clause applies to land in the following zones. Don't we need to specify in the draft what those zones would be? So it's in A, it says set out the zones to which the clause is to apply. Should that be in the draft?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's exactly what Councillor Morris was referring to. That no, it doesn't need to be because it will apply to all of our zones.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. I didn't understand it, so thank you for clarifying.
Councillor McGinn.
Just a question, if I may. So as I understand it, this is an optional clause to facilitate the development consent for repair and replacement of legal dwellings that are damaged by natural disaster. So does that mean that Kempsey Shire Council would not be able to refuse a DA that didn't meet the new codes?
Through Madam Mayor, any DA that came in would still need to meet the new codes in terms of its the material and bushfire protection and things like that. What this allows is instances where you might have 2 dwellings that are currently closer together that under the existing planning zones wouldn't be permitted. They would be permitted back in those current locations.
Okay, councillors, is there any dissent on the recommendation? There's no dissent. That's been carried. We move on to 9.5. Thank you, Councillor Patterson, and it's been seconded by Councillor Shields. The recovery update, the recommendation is the information been noted. Is there any dissent on the recommendation?
Madam Mayor, I have a question, please.
Yes, Councillor Horville.
It's in the attachment. I'm trying to get back to the attachment, but my iPad's doing some silly things, or maybe I'm not operating it properly. So it's the recovery action plan update. It's the 30-page one, item 4 of the attachments. I can just get it up. And here it is. Again, I apologise for delaying, Council. It's just a question on the coordination of monetary donations and donated household goods, which is on page 12, Madam Mayor. My question is basically, the Council resolved to promote the Rotary Compassionate Grant for MACLEAY Valley Bushfire Relief as a preferred charitable organisation. Is there any feedback from Rotary on what they did with the monies, please? Can you hear me? Sorry.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we'll have to take that on notice. That was back in very, very early this year when they distributed those funds. So we'd have to go back and actually ask them exactly what it was. So we'll take that on notice.
Thank you very much. And basically, that's my only question. I was intrigued with the Rotary helping out. So
thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any dissent on the recommendation? Thank you, councillors. That's been carried. That's 9.5. 9.6 has been passed. 9.7 has been passed. We go to 9.8, which is the proposed road closure at WILLI. Do I have a thank you, Councillor Patterson.
Second that.
Well, actually, Councillor Morris had his hand up, so I'll take Councillor Morris. So do I have any questions, or do you wish to speak? No?
Madam Mayor?
Councillor Horval?
Madam Mayor, could I refer to the attachment, the extent of road closure, and it shows the house that has been built on the public roadway. Is there any idea when that house was built?
Yeah, Councillor, I'd need to take that on notice, but I suspect it's been there for some time.
So at some point, I believe the DAs would have needed at some point, and I don't know what that time frame is, for people to build houses in the...
Your question is?
So my question, Madam Mayor, so I'm coming to the question. Also, it talks about a public road amount of land being given to council or changed to public road before the land in question is gifted to or paid for by the present landowner. I can't see any diagram of where that public road would go. Is there any information to council on where that road would be?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, the new road reserve would be located to the side of the house, so it's obviously clear of the dwelling with an appropriate setback distance.
Okay, thank you. And finally, what's the cost of that we are asking the landowner to produce, or amount of money that for this all to happen at no cost to council?
Through Madam Mayor, I expect that's in line with our fees and charges. I don't have the fee in front of us, but it's obviously about ensuring that we recover the costs that we would incur.
So there is no need to defer the motion then. Thank you very much, Mr. Director.
Thank you, councillors. Is there any dissent on this recommendation? There's no dissent. Thank you, councillors. That's been carried. 9.9 is the annual report. We have, thank you, Councillor Morris. You moved to Councillor Morris, yeah? And seconded Councillor Baxter. Do I have any questions?
I had a question, or I had an amendment, which was probably the same as the item that I brought up a couple of items ago. Within Part B of the report, under donations, the Country Education Fund of the Macleay Valley is referred to as the Macleay Valley Education Fund. It needs to be changed, in my opinion, to the Country Education Fund of the Macleay Valley, because that is their registered name. And if we're making a donation to a company or an organisation as a registered name, we should be noting that registered name in the annual report, not noting a colloquial name that they are locally known as.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, that change will be made in the report.
Thank you. Councillor Baxter.
Question, please, Chair. In the actual report, annual report, which is a fantastic document and highlights what a great effort this council's done, the brass and all the workers of this council have done this year, a horrendous year, challenging year. On page 23 of the actual annual report for 1920, with the grants, list of grants they're taken, it's a great achievement to get that amount of money out of the state and federal government for our valley, which stimulates growth. But my question is to the director, is there a more indicative number of the total amount of grant money we've received this year, or in that 1920 year there? That's looking like $26 million received in grant funding. But is there a more indicative number if we include other not listed there?
Yep. Through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Baxter, the next agenda item, which has got the financial statements, actually reports on what we've recognised in terms of grants and contributions for the year, and the total of that number for the financial year that's just finished is around $29 million.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Congratulations on getting that money for us.
Councillor Morris.
Just a quick question. I noticed that in the annual report, I think it's in Part B, maybe in Part A, but I think it's in Part B, the enumeration of the senior staff is quoted as a consolidated figure, one for the general manager and one for the two directors. In the past, I don't know whether it was the same last year or that was further back than that, there used to be a breakdown of what that was made up of, as in salary, super and contribution to a vehicle. Is there any reason why that hasn't been followed through on this occasion, or has there been a change to legislation, or whereas the legislation was such that you only have to put in a consolidated figure?
During Madam Mayor, the legislation is such we only have to put in the consolidated figure, and from memory, it was the same last year.
Just I remember it from years back that there used to always be a breakup given.
Things change.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Councillor Baxter.
Just a second question, Chair, on the wonderful annual report on page 21 of the actual Part A. Part A. Thank you. It mentions there the one of the many things the council did this year, and we just spoke about the recovery action plan, which should be complimented for what they've done. Could I just ask the director, when we say the recovery action plan has been a success, which was mentioned in the previous report, when it says that the fund was over applied for or over committed, are we looking at people missing out on the funding on some parts of that recovery action plan?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, there's two different things I think Councillor Baxter is referring to. The overall recovery action plan, as per the last item, gives a really good detail of all the actions actually been taken. The oversubscription refers to the $300,000 grant program.
Yes.
So groups did miss out. That doesn't mean individuals have missed out. There have been certainly lots of grants going in through federal and state government directly to individuals as well. But our grant program was oversubscribed, which is actually an encouraging sign. But the $300,000 is certainly very welcome in the community, and it will certainly provide a lot of additional recovery programs.
Yeah, money well spent, and they're to be congratulated, the people who did that recovery action plan. Thank you,
comment,
Director.
Your question.
Yeah, that was the question.
And I'm going to make a comment, which is I'm pulling everyone up on making a comment. But Councillor Horville's got a question, but my comment is around our recovery action plan. Some of the councillors here may not be aware, but I think it was last week we had Andrew Colburn here from New South Wales disaster, federal bushfire recovery, and Chris Pressland, he's from Resilience, New South Wales. They were here and spent virtually the whole day here. And the feedback I got from both those gentlemen was that Kempsey has achieved really highly in the way we've handled what happened in the bushfires and our recovery efforts. And we need to congratulate our staff on that. Well done, Lyndall. To have high praise from the federal and the state governments in the way we've managed that is a credit to you.
Just, Madam Mayor, I just need to actually make a correction. The $300,000 is still actually getting wound up and sorted out. The oversubscription was our previous grant program. But yeah, we're expecting very, very good response to the $300,000 as well. And there's a community group who are actually assessing those.
Okay. We have a recommendation. Councillor Horville had his hand up.
Yes, Madam Mayor, a question, if I may. On page 19 of annual report part B, Madam Mayor, I guess it's legislated that we report on the employment of people from within the local government area, LGA, which is at the top of page 19. It states that council employed 251.43 full-time equivalent staff, having their home address within the boundaries of the Kempsey LGA, or 81% of the workforce during this period. So my question based on that bit is, has council any incentive or plan to increase the number of our staff living in the LGA?
Through you, Madam
Take
Mayor.
that to the General Manager.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Council is required by law to actually undertake a merit-based process. So the consideration of where people are actually living at the time of their employment is irrelevant and cannot be taken into consideration.
Yeah, but that's not my question.
Councillor, your question?
Madam Mayor, that wasn't my question. My question was, how are we going to encourage people who have been employed out of the area to come and live in the area? Is there any incentives?
Yeah, they actually, through Madam Mayor, they actually recognise that if they're coming to Kempsey Shire Council, they're coming to an organisation that has generally a very, very positive culture. It offers a range of very flexible benefits that makes it a real employer of choice. At the end of the day, they still will make their own personal choice about where they actually live.
Right. Thank you, Mr. General Manager.
Okay. No further questions. Any dissent on the recommendation? Thank you, councillors. It's been carried unanimously. We'll now move on to 9.10, which is the presentation of the annual report. Do I have
Move that way.
Mayor,
Yeah, Councillor Saul, thank you, and seconded by Councillor McGinn.
Madam
Yes, Councillor Horval has his hand up.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move an urgency motion before we break, if that's possible, please.
And your urgency motion is?
My emergency motion is that it's about the petition from South West Rock Senior Citizens. The Code of Meeting Practice requires that a petition duly submitted 10 working days before the council meeting be reported at the next council. The wording and the number of signatures can be reported at this meeting. So my motion would enable the General Manager to fulfil the Code of Meeting Practice and just report on how many signatures and what the petition was about. So I would suggest we're keeping in line with the Code of Meeting Practice, and that's why I move it as an urgency motion, Madam Mayor.
I'm going to put that urgency motion to the vote.
Madam Mayor, point of order.
Not clear what it actually is.
I know, I don't think any of us are.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor.
It's your decision, Madam Mayor, as the Mayor, whether it's urgency is accepted. You don't have to put it to the vote. In my understanding of the Code of Meeting.
Yes, I can. And it, in my estimation, is actually I'm going to rule. No, I'm going to put it to, I'll take it as an urgency motion and I'll ask the councillors if they wanted to consider it now.
Well, I'd like to move the motion then, Madam Mayor, if you've accepted it.
No, I have to put it to the vote to see if the councillors agree to it.
No, Madam Mayor.
Whether the councillors agree that it's urgent. I'm sorry, Councillor Hall.
Yeah, okay, you've changed it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
No, I haven't changed it. I will ask the General Manager. I've taken it as urgent, but now I have to get the councillors to consider whether they will accept it.
Madam Mayor, I'm not quite sure what Councillor Hall was referring to. I've been on leave for a week and still catching up with correspondence. There was a letter from the South West Rocks seniors group for us to give consideration in terms of their needs. And I know Madam Mayor met with them over the weekend as well and had a very positive meeting and discussion with them, and has since been in correspondence with our Manager of Community Partnerships on the matter as well. I'm not aware of any petition at this point in time that's actually been received. So once I do become aware of that, that's when I would actually enact the Code of Meeting Practice and consider whether or not it needed to come to council.
First of all, I'm going to take this as an urgent motion. And
Can I just move the motion then, Madam Mayor?
just a moment. No, you can't. I need to get the councillors to decide whether they will consider this motion as urgent.
Well, they don't know what the motion is, Madam Mayor.
The only reason that I'm going to put it to the councillors now is the fact that further on down the track, we are talking about Southwest Rocks. There's a motion about Southwest Rocks hub, library. So, councillors, do you agree or just not to accepting this as urgent?
Can I ask a question first?
Yes, Councillor Morris.
The general manager and the staff are saying that they have not seen or received the petition. So even if this is considered and resolved, there's nothing to present. Is that correct, Mr. General Manager?
Sorry, I was just reading an email from Councillor Horville. Could you please repeat that question, Councillor Morris?
The general manager and the appropriate director have said that they have not received a petition from the Southwest Rocks community. On that basis, that even if this is resolved in the affirmative, there is no petition to be tabled and no comments to be made on the petition because no staff have actually received it at this stage. Is there any possibility that may have come into council and been put down somewhere and has not been actioned?
Look, it can be. The email that Councillor Horville has sent through is one that addressed to me. He must have been blind copied on, I assume, for him to actually have a copy of it. And that says there's an attached position. I don't recall actually seeing this, but that doesn't mean it didn't occur. But yeah, we're not in a position to actually deal with it at this meeting simply because we don't have the information to deal with it. It will come, if needed, it'll come to the February council meeting.
Yeah, so therefore, on that basis, if you haven't cited it, you can't talk to it. If it has been received, it will come to the February council meeting.
Should it require, yes.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. I'm going to put the...
Madam Mayor, may I make an explanation, please?
Councillor, I'm dealing with the procedural motion.
Yes, but I just would like to...
Councillor, I'm dealing with the procedural motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is there any dissent on the procedural motion to deal with this as a matter of urgency? Okay, that's been lost. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, may I make my explanation now, please?
No, the matter's finished.
No, I would like to...
Councillor, that is enough. Point of order. I have ruled that that matter has been finished. Thank you. We are now on 9:10.
I'll move that way.
Presentation of annual financial statement. I think we had already moved and seconded when we were interrupted by the matter of urgency. Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder.
And in fact, Madam Mayor, can I just bring up a comment on the previous issue that was up on the screen?
I don't think you can, Councillor.
Well, what is up on the screen, I don't think is appropriate. It said that Council considers the matter raised by Councillor Horville. There should be more detail in what he raised.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, thank you, Councillor. Yes. And I believe that that is what will happen. Yeah. We're having very great difficulty with what is being put into the computer and what's coming up on the screen at the moment. It's technical. But yes, you're correct. Okay, so we have that the council adopt the annual financial statements for the year. It's been moved and it's been seconded. Do you wish to speak, councillor?
Madam Mayor, very briefly, just to commend the staff on these actions, the finance staff and the director, because we've turned the ship around. It's wonderful to see. I think everyone here is very excited to think that, you know, we're going to in a forward position. So again, Director Mitchell and staff, well done.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Patterson, and then I'll take Councillor Horville.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also would like to commend the staff, but could I ask a question through you, Madam Mayor, to the appropriate directors, is to give us a small snapshot of where we're up to now with our fees and charges related to the sewer network, the water network and the roads network in comparison to our comparable councils. Thank you.
Mr. Fish.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Just commenting on the, I guess, the water and sewer rates. So our water rates that are currently charged are similar to the state average, maybe marginally above. And the sewer rates that we charge, we are at the higher end across sewer rates charged in New South Wales. And that is largely a result of, I guess, aged infrastructure, in terms, particularly our sewage treatment plants are in need of renewal. So there's certainly a need to fund those over the coming years, which means that our sewer charge is quite high at the moment. The roads come under the general fund. I might refer that to Councillor, Director Mitchell in that regard.
Thank you, Director Fish. Yeah, in relation to general rates, we haven't done an updated analysis since the time that we pulled together the financial sustainability strategy, which was back and adopted by Council back in April 2019. I think based on that, it showed that we were sort of in line or towards the upper end of some of our comparative councils, and that's something that we'll continue to look at, Councillor Patterson, as we go forward. There's some disparities, obviously, across the different rating categories between residential and business, for example.
One more question, Madam Mayor.
Certainly, Councillor.
Do you think a way forward in our fees and charges is possibly looking towards our business rate and our agricultural rate change to bring us more in line with our comparable councils?
Through Madam Mayor, any changes to any of the rate categories will be something that the council will consider holistically as part of the whole financial sustainability program.
Thank you, Councillor Horval.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the background of this recommendation, Madam Mayor, it talks about a public meeting for the purpose of considering the annual financial statement. Was the council meeting where it considered that financial statement considered the public meeting?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any dissent on the recommendation? There's no dissent on the recommendation. That's been carried. It's now 10:30. We'll break for 20 minutes. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, councillors. We're all back and we're all present, so we'll resume the meeting. It's item 9.12, disclosure of interest returns. There. Thank you, councillor. Not, yeah, it went through. So at 9.12, thank you, councillor McGinn, and it was seconded by councillor Patterson, I believe. Thank you. Councillor Horval. Councillor Horval has his hand up, and then Councillor Morris.
He's muted at the moment.
I'm sorry, Councillor Horval, we can't hear you. You are muted.
Sorry, my mistake, Madam Mayor. I apologise. I would like to move an amendment, if I may, Madam Mayor. But first of all, I'd like to apologise for not filling in my form correctly, and I had to redo it, so that's what's happening with this. My amendment is, Council is to report to May Council which other staff under 4.2.1b of Council's Code of Conduct should be designated under clause 4.8c or d if required.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a councillor Morris?
I'll second that because I had a similar question, but mine was different. I had a question in relation to that, which may have led to an amendment.
I would like to speak to it if I could, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor.
Madam Mayor, the new legislation talks about people who are on committees to do with council that are involved with major decisions of council. And you know, for example, the Audit Risk Committee, those people on it are making big financial decisions and risk, and a whole lot of other possible people working for council. So I'm just leaving it to the council staff and the general manager, of course, to investigate whether any other people should be designated as people who should make a disclosure of interest. And that's what I'm asking the council to confirm, that we should have that investigated and come back to May Council if there is any changes. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, we'll just get Mr. Thorogood to make a comment on that.
Through you, Madam Mayor. ELT last week considered exactly this item, and there is a list of staff that has been designated, and it will be published on our website within the next couple of weeks.
Thank you, Councillor Director Manager Thorogood. Okay.
It's a question, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, so, Mr. General Manager, is this amendment necessary in your opinion?
Through Madam Mayor, no.
Okay, well, I'll withdraw that, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Morris, you had something?
Well, my question has basically been answered, but what my question was going to be, so you're aware, is when will the review of staff as highlighted in the report be undertaken? And if the answer was going to be some time off, I was going to be then moving an amendment that in the interim all managers be included as designated persons and returns needing to be done. It will be good to see the list. That list, I assume, will be forwarded out to councillors to review?
Correct.
Thank you. Any dissent? Thank you, councillors. That's been passed. So we're now going to 9.13 has been done. Nowhere at notice of motion. So the first one is investigation to install modern and audio-visual systems in council chambers. Councillor Horval.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move that the recommendation that Kempsey Shire Council undertake an investigation. I'd like to delete the word thorough. Investigations of options for enhanced modern audiovisual equipment in the council chamber. A report on these options and recommendations for purchase of the equipment be presented to the February 2021 council.
Just got a question on that, Madam Mayor.
I just need a seconder. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Morris.
Could I speak to it, Madam Mayor, please?
Madam Mayor, my question. Oh, okay, sorry.
Madam Mayor, may I speak to my motion, please?
Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You have 2 minutes.
Yes, I know. Thank you for reminding me of the time. The response to a question that I asked on notice back in August. The reply said the cost of installing a facility that would enable multiple camera angles to be broadcast and switched to the current speakers automatically is estimated to be around 8,000 exclusive of GST. So I moved this notice of motion so that we could have a modern equipment in our chamber so that we can present ourselves to the wider community in a better technology. The general manager then talks about, and I understand why he's done that, I put the word thorough in there. I don't think we need the thorough, which would come out to $122,000, which is nowhere in our budget for doing that. And even if councillors didn't attend local government conferences for 10 years, we'd never get that money. So I'm suggesting we just go with an investigation of the basic equipment, the switching camera equipment that is used by Armidale Regional Council. And it's a pretty straightforward thing. We've got the money, let's do it.
Councillor Patterson.
Madam Mayor, I just have two questions on this issue. Just through you, Madam Mayor, to the director or the general manager. How many people on average watch or are logged in on our council meetings?
It varies. At the moment, there's 12.
There's 12. My next question is, is Councillor Hallville asking us to spend in the vicinity of $120,000 so he can't come to the meeting?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, I don't believe that's what Councillor Hallville is asking.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any other people? Councillor?
Just a question. Is it possible to know how many of those are staff of the 12?
Might have been some watching.
Shields.
Might have been some watching because it's actually just dropped to 9. So no, we don't have a way of actually knowing that.
Thank you, Councillor Shields.
Last
Councillor
question.
Morris.
Equally, General Manager, it's not just those that watch it when it's actually happening. Do we have any record or do we have any means of identifying how many people actually download it and watch it after the event? Because people at work wouldn't be watching it. One would think that they would watch it after they get home or at a time convenient for them.
Yeah, look, we do have figures on that. We can't get them up quite that quick, but we do have figures on that. But again, it's probably less than a few dozen.
Can I ask a question on that? When it comes up as how many watch it after the event, there's no way. Is there a way of telling how many of the same person continues to watch over and over again?
Probably without a lot of work, I'd be surprised. It may have the functionality to tell how long people are watching for.
Yeah, look, we get some indication. For instance, for this meeting, I can tell you we've got 14 concurrent viewers right now. There's 44 people who have played back some section of the meeting, and the average person has watched for 34 minutes and 5 seconds before they've closed it. But yeah, in regards to how many people watch it, I know staff go back and watch items sometimes many times over. Even in the minutes, we might watch the same item 20 or 30 times while we're doing the minutes. So it would be hard to take an indicative from how many people watch the stream as to how many people are actually consuming the meeting.
Just one more question, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor.
Just based on that, our meetings are recorded on video, but if someone was wanting to see what the result of notices of motion or what decisions council have made, would they not seek the minutes at any time they wanted to?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I guess what the Office of Local Government has done by requiring councils to record the meetings, it gives people the option. They can actually view the video or they can go to the minutes.
Thank you, councillors. Is there any further questions? Any further comment? Any dissent on the recommendation?
Madam Mayor, could I speak in reply, please?
There's been no speaker against. There's only questions.
But I would like to respond to Madam Mayor.
Yes, you can have your right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's interesting that some of the comments from some of my fellow councillors are intrigued by who's watching. I can tell you that there are quite a few people who do watch it. Sometimes the number of people who've watched the video of our council meeting is up around 200-300, but not always. But as the General Manager alluded to, we are required to present a video of our council meetings. It's a requirement, and I'm saying that we should have the better technology that presents everyone. At the moment, I can be seen, as you realise, but for anyone else watching, there's a distant view of people who's speaking. We don't know, we can't see, but if you adopt the one that's used by Avondale Regional Council, every person speaking, their voice activates the camera, their name appears, so the people watching are more informed. And we've got the money. I would suggest that it would be a simple thing for us to investigate and see if we can get the $8,000 special deal on upgrading our equipment.
Thank you. That's closed debate. Any dissent on the notice of motion? The notice of motion has been lost. It's been 7-2. We can't get it up. Morris and Horval voted for. Baxter, Patterson, Campbell, Shields, Saul, Williams and McGinn voted against. We're now going to the South West Rocks Library and Community Centre consultation and engagement. There is a notice of motion. Thank you, Councillor Horval.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The recommendation is there. It's number one, the Kempsey Shire Council consult and engage with the South West Rocks community on the facilities needed in the final design of the community centre and library. The council will organise a community meeting, an online consulting engagement to gain feedback on facilities required. The consultation will be undertaken prior to a report to March 2021 council. That's my motion, Madam Mayor.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Morris. Councillor McGinn has her light on.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to speak to my motion.
I'd like to move an amendment.
Okay, Councillor McGinn's moving an amendment, but you can speak to your motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the community of South West Rocks have a lot of organisations that need meeting places, and the one that mostly needs it, in my opinion, after talking to them quite often, is the South West Rocks seniors who had somewhere near 200 people who are members, and they are concerned. And I was called out to a meeting in September, and they were asking, what can we do to expedite what is happening so that we do get in our lifetime a community meeting place. At the moment, they've got go different places, and the interesting point about this is that they don't have a set place, but they can set up and continue. So nearly 948 people signed a petition that was forwarded to the General Manager, but he hasn't yet seen it. So that's something that will be dealt with in the future. But there's a major concern out there that they aren't being catered for. So I'm suggesting we have a consultation with the community, and we get people to engage with council on what they would require in a community centre.
Councillor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment, and that amendment is that we note the General Manager's comment that consultation with the South West Rocks community regarding the South West Rocks Library and Community Centre is already in the 2021 operational plan.
Thank you, Councillor McGinn. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Do you wish to speak? No need?
I don't believe there really is, Madam Mayor. If the action is already occurring and the consultation and engagement is going to be part of our operating plan, then really this recommendation as a notice of motion put by Councillor Horval is unnecessary.
Thank you, Councillor Horval. Your right of reply.
No, I'd just like to ask a question to the General Manager, please, if I may, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Horval.
I'm looking at the General Manager's comment, and the operational plan that a councillor has just referred to says pursue funding opportunities for development of South West Rocks Library and Community Centre. It doesn't actually specify consultation, so I'm not too sure what amendment is referring.
Can I refer
I would like
to page 56?
Just a moment.
So my question to the General Manager is, where is this? I haven't seen it, Madam Mayor.
Through you, Madam Mayor, when council is looking at major projects like this, there's always a consultation process that's actually outlined at the top of page 56. It outlines that council launched an online engagement forum from Monday the 7th of December, seeking community feedback on your future libraries. This will include the whole community hub as part of that as well. We're seeking feedback on that. Groups can actually register for that. We'll have face-to-face engagement in that as well. So this is actually already well underway.
Councillor,
thank you.
Councillor Morris, and then I'll take Councillor McGinn. You had a question.
Mine is simply to inform the intention of a foreshadowed amendment.
Sorry, I can't hear anything, Madam Mayor.
I'm just going to put the amendment to the vote.
Madam Mayor, I would like to speak against the amendment, if I may.
Yes, Councillor.
Madam Mayor, I don't think this amendment is necessary. We need to tell the community that we're going to engage with them. As I said, there's a large number of people out there who are looking forward to a community centre and library to be installed at some place in South West Rocks. We need to consult with them and engage with them, and we can best do that by a public meeting. I know some of you don't like public meetings, but the point I would like to make about these people is that they are not highly computer literate, and so putting out on my say, or your say, MACLEAY, this consultation, and also the chance for people to consult individually or groups with council staff. We need to, if that's going to be the process, how are we going to get to those people without computers, without information given to them? So I'd suggest we need to think carefully about that. So I don't think this amendment is necessary. We leave it to look at doing something, and I've been told by the senior citizens that this has been mooted or pushed since 1984. So it's quite a long time that this has been a desire of the community out there, and we should listen to the community. That's what our engagement policy said. And we need to engage with those people who are not computer able, and this can be done with a community meeting.
Before I'm going to speak for the amendment, because there are things that probably Councillor Horval is not aware of. And you're correct, the Senior Citizens Group, which is one of the groups that could possibly utilise a community hub, have offered an invitation, and this would have happened earlier apart from COVID. And I believe that in their February meeting, our community team will be attending that meeting, and they have been advised, and they know that face-to-face communication with them was time sensitive due to COVID, also to the fact that we need to get in a application. We also know that high on our priority now for South West Rocks is the library and the community hub. That has risen to a very high on our agenda of priorities from our operating plan. We've ticked off some of the other boxes, and this is one of the things that will need to be done. In my communication with, there was about 100 at their Christmas party on Saturday. I was given the opportunity to speak, and I don't know that we need to take over from where our staff have already gone with this engagement. There is a process in place. We have seen with Crescent Head how by not using public meetings, but by using the cafe type of engagement and the other types of engagement that are out there, where the community actually have the correct input and they have their say and they can drive what they want, we get the better outcome. And that's what starts the relationship. That is already in place. We would be preempting and being prescriptive by taking this recommendation. I have utmost faith in our staff. We know, we've seen it happen with the sports, with Crescent Head, with some of the stuff we've done at Southwest Rocks. Let's give the library and the hub the opportunity to have a community-driven and community-based public space that we know we can deliver. I'm going to take Councillor Baxter. Is that a question? Councillor Patterson had his light on first, then Councillor Baxter. Are you speaking for or against, or is it a question?
Just a question, Madam Mayor. As a member of the previous sitting council, I do believe that the library issue came to us a number of years ago, and we actually looked in at the sale of the current library site and were looking for expressions of interest to forward those monies to a project of this type. And so this has actually been part of Kempsey Council's
point of order, Madam
wish
Mayor,
list for quite a while. So
the point of order is,
Madam Mayor, is the Councillor Patterson asking a question or making
your question? I'll take the point of order. Your question.
My question is, through you to the General Manager, Madam Mayor, do we have any recollection of the year that this came to Council's attention?
Through Madam Mayor, just in terms of my recollection of just reading the history, it does go back quite some time, and there was a previous grant application put in several years ago for this project, and we're currently working on one. What I would just add in relation to the community engagement going forward is that Council did adopt the community infrastructure plan, which looked at the needs of Southwest Rocks along with the rest of the Shire. There was extensive community consultation in that as well. So we need to be aware that Council already has a very strategic approach to this. The future libraries page on Your Say MACLEAY has already had nearly 60 visits to it without us actually promoting it at this point in time, and that's within a week. So once we start promoting that, we'll see that go up even further. And our staff are currently in the process of actually planning the face-to-face engagement with the community, which will take place early in the new year. That is why we put those comments in as the General Manager's comment, because the notice of motion that Councillor Horville has put up is part of the current operational plan and is already being actioned.
Thank you. Councillor Baxter.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just speaking in support of the amendment. What? Your amendment? Yeah.
Madam Mayor, we've only had one speaker against. We've now had more than one for.
Thank you, Councillor. I thought Councillor Baxter was asking. Yeah, you're right.
I'll just simply say, can we put the amendment?
Okay, so we've had a speaker for. Is anyone else speaking against? I can put the amendment. All in favour of. Thank you, General Manager. After this many years, I keep forgetting. Is there any dissent against the amendment? Councillor Horville. So the amendment has been carried. We have the amendment becomes the motion, and Councillor Morris has a foreshadowed motion, I think.
A foreshadowed amendment.
A foreshadowed amendment.
Madam Mayor, my foreshadowed amendment is similar in vein to the amendment that we just discussed, but slightly different, and sort of also adds a little bit more. And that is that Council acknowledges the online engagement forum commenced by Council on the 7th of December via Your Say MACLEAY. The Council actively seeks community group participation for face-to-face meetings. And 3, that in the event that COVID does not prevent a public meeting from being held, a public meeting be held soon after the completion of the Your Say MACLEAY initiative. I add the third, or if I get a mover, I suppose I can talk to it.
A seconder.
A seconder, sorry.
I have a question in the meantime, just while that's coming up. Is that okay?
There's no seconder, that's been lapsed.
Now, Madam Mayor, it's a foreshadowed motion. Point of order.
Foreshadowed amendment.
It was a foreshadowed amendment.
Does it need a seconder before it can be, if it's foreshadowed?
Yeah, it's now an amendment. It's not. Yeah. So it needs a.
No, it is now the
needs a
amendment.
seconder.
It
Okay.
needs a seconder.
Well, I'll second it, Madam Mayor.
There's now a seconder. Councillor Shields has got her light on. Councillor Shields.
Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Don't I have a right to speak to
Yes, you do.
my amendment?
You want to speak first? Yes.
Yeah. The reason why I move it is because I believe we should be acknowledging what has already started. The General Manager said to be face-to-face, but what I'm saying, and I'm not sure, but from what was said, they're likely to be going out, but I'm saying we should proactively go out and seek to talk to the groups, which may or may not be happening. But I glean from what the General Manager said it's likely to be happening. I'd also like to think that there be a public meeting to go over and explain to each of the groups or representatives from each of the groups, and maybe that part needs to be changed so it's a representative from each of the groups to explain what the outcome is so that they can explain to their groups. I'm not suggesting that be done before we put in the grant application, but I'm suggesting that be done to close the loop from the community engagement that's been undertaken. So I'm happy to consider changes to point 3, but I believe we should be going out and at least having a face-to-face with representatives of each of the major groups to explain the outcomes of the community engagement.
Councillor Shields.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm just assuming that if Council has put this on Your Say MACLEAY, that there is a communications plan around that.
Through Madam Mayor, yes, there is an engagement plan. Council has adopted the community engagement strategy. Our staff, which is your responsibility, our staff's responsibility is to operationalise that. In this case, they already have done that. There is an engagement plan for this project. It doesn't include an open public meeting because that often is not the best and actually can be quite detrimental to a process. It does involve meetings face-to-face with a range of different groups out there, and it will involve giving feedback about what the actual outcome of that is. So we'll be working with the community through that whole process, both between now and when the grant is due, the grant application we're working on at the moment, which is due at the end of January, and beyond that as well as we continue to work with the community. So essentially, you know, I guess just be careful that you, through resolutions or through amendments, you're not trying to get into how to operationalise the strategies you've already adopted, because that's the staff's job.
Madam Mayor, can I...
Just a moment, Councillor
I just want to withdraw point 3 if I can after the General Manager's comments. But if I need to wait till somebody else talks, I'll wait till somebody else.
So you want to withdraw point 3, and so from the original recommendation, you've just added 7 December and actively.
What was there was that the General Manager's comments be noted that within the operational plan. I don't believe that gives any credence to the community. What I would think we'd be much better off to do is to say that we acknowledge the online forum which has commenced, which provides some means of getting it out to the community and more community members might engage with it, and that Council actively seeks the community group. Now, if there wasn't the amendment, which I think is lacking in detail, which is now the motion, I wouldn't even be putting this up. But because it goes out that we note that it's in the operating plan, I think we need to be more specific that it's actually started. It's not just in the operating plan.
I just, sorry, this is my question, but I was just asking Councillor Horville if we, Manager Thorogood, if we could see the original as well as the amended, just to go back and see what the words actually are.
In fact, I move that we go into workshop because I believe I'm quite happy for that to be amended, but I believe we need to be saying more than it is in the operating plan. We need to be clarifying for the community that reads the minutes as to what is happening.
I want to see the original.
So that it reflects more to what the General Manager's comment was. Yes, I'm with you. So Councillor McGinn, when you move, what we have now as the resolution is very one sentence saying It's in the operating plan.
I know, I just want to see what it was. Please.
What you had, or what
Yes,
Leo
what
put
I,
up?
what the current amendment.
What the
was,
current
that
motion
now the
is.
motion.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to second the motion to move into workshop.
All in favour of moving into workshop?
Against?
Oh, sorry, any dissent into moving? Any dissent into? Okay. We're not in workshop because yes, it's dissent. So we're not in workshop, but Councillor McGinn would like to see what the motion that has been passed actually says.
Well, it does refer to consultation. If I may just ask a question, and it's further to what Councillor Shields said, and I was going to bring up the point that we actually do have a communication strategy. So spelling out how we're going to do a communication strategy sounds very much like, and my question is, are we telling our staff how to suck eggs? They are the experts, and here we are reinventing a community engagement strategy on this one item.
Just in response to that, I think I've already answered that in my response to Councillor Morris.
Okay, so we have a foreshadow. No, we don't. It is now an amendment. So we're going to deal with the amendment. You've spoken for your amendment, Councillor Morris.
Madam Mayor, all I'm saying is that it expresses what council is actually doing, or it could be wordsmithed and changed to sort of say that council has a communication strategy and it be advertised. But by just saying it's in the operating plan doesn't even tell people that it's currently in progress. And I believe it's important that we be clear to the community as to what is actually happening.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. So can I have up on screen, please, the amendment? So the amendment for Councillor Morris states that acknowledgement of the online engagement forum commenced by Council on 7th of December by your say MACLEAY and actively seeks community group participation to face-to-face meetings.
May I suggest that part 1 of Councillor Morris's motion become part 2 of the now current motion? So it says that we're note the General Manager's commentary about the communication strategy regarding the Southwest Rocks Library and Community Centre, and part 2, acknowledge the online engagement forum commenced by Council on the 7th of December.
So you're moving another motion, another amendment, in essence. You can't incorporate it into it. It'd have to be another amendment.
It's actually changing point 1 and adding a point 2 to it, because point 1 was that Councillor McGinn that just then said was completely different to what the current motion is.
Correct. You would have to be moving an amendment, Councillor McGinn.
You're talking about the amendment that is now currently the motion?
Yes,
and
I know.
Councillor Morris's point 1.
We have to deal with the amendment first.
Right.
We have to deal. You're moving an amendment to this amendment. We need to deal with the amendment that's in front of us.
Madam Mayor, I move again that we move into workshop so that we can discuss it.
Can I, Chair?
I'm sorry, but we have to deal with the amendment that's in front of us, councillors.
Can I speak against it?
So you're speaking against this amendment. Okay, Councillor Baxter, you may. We had a speaker for, you can speak against this amendment.
Can I simply say that if we look at the General Manager's comment on the motion by Councillor Horville, in his comment, he mentions December 7. He mentions community groups can register their interest and have staff member come and meet their group. He mentions that we are going for a grant for this process. There's 3 paragraphs there for the public to read after they read the motion. I don't think we need to spoon feed people by rephrasing those 3 paragraphs into an amendment of the amendment of the amendment. There it is. The motion was put. The general manager got the answer there. I think we should give the general public a bit of credence that they can understand what's going on.
Councillor,
I have a quick question.
yes, Councillor Morris.
To the General Manager. Mr. General Manager, will your General Manager's comments be included in the minutes of the meeting when the community read the minutes?
No, they're not included in the minutes. They're actually recorded in the business paper. And just in relation to the comment about the community read the minutes, there might be a couple of dozen people that might read the minutes.
They're in the business paper.
A lot of people will just read the minutes.
Councillors, point of order, you can't have that side conversation. Is there any, we now have the amendment. Is there any dissent on the amendment? So 7 to Councillor Horville and Councillor Morris have voted for the amendment. Councillor Baxter, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Shields, Councillor Saw, Councillor Williams and Councillor McGinn have voted against it. We now have an amendment from Councillor McGinn.
I was going to suggest that we take that point 1, acknowledge the online engagement forum commenced by Council on the 7th of December by your say MacLeay as just part 2 of the current motion. The current motion part 1 is noting the General Manager's comments. They're here in 3 paragraphs in the.
So we have an amendment which says 1, and then it says point 2. So you're going to accept that into your motion? But it's still the motion. So we have to vote on the motion. Or we have to have any dissent on the motion. Is there any questions? No. Is there any dissent on the motion? Yes, Councillor.
I'd like to move another amendment, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor.
And that is that we add that it is already commenced and that there is what's the name of it? And there is an engagement plan for the process. Including face-to-face.
Do I have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Horville, you're seconding?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
We just hold up for a minute so that we can actually get, firstly, we'll get the motion up on the screen so Council can see that first, which is the 2 parts from Councillor McGinn.
You need to. Yeah.
And I think what we've done there is actually put the last part of Councillor Morris's in as a potential part that could be incorporated in it or not, depending on what Miss Councillor McGinn wishes to do.
It just seems ridiculous to me, but if we're going to note the General Manager's comment, what are we going to do? Cut and paste the comment into the motion so that we're noting everything that the General Manager said? Like, what is driving me nuts here is that Councillor Horville has brought a notice of motion to Council, and we've just spent half an hour or whatever the time is debating something that's already being undertaken. This is so inefficient, folks. This is already occurring. And if we just note that the General Manager's comment that consultation with South West Rocks community regarding the South West Rocks Library and Community Centre is already in the 2021 operational plan, and acknowledge that the engagement has begun, then we're there. We're doing what we're doing. Once again, we as councillors are instructing staff to do their job that they're already doing. This is not strategic, folks. This is operational.
Okay. I'm going to put the amendment. I'm going to ask, is there any dissent on the amendment, which has Been moved by Councillor Morris. The amendment is only number 3.
That is not what I moved at all as an amendment. What I moved as the amendment is that we add to acknowledge online engagement forum commenced by Council on the 7th of December by your say MACLEAY, comma, that a engagement plan has been established which includes face-to-face meetings.
So that is the amendment. I know. Do you wish to speak to your amendment?
Similar to what I said before, people are not just because it says it's in the operating plan, because that's what the first one says. The second one acknowledges that it's commenced, but people may or may not go back to the agenda to find the General Manager's comments. They are more likely to read the minutes if they read anything, not the full agenda after the event. So a couple of lines to say yes and save continuing to discuss this for another half an hour would allow it to be inclusive so that the people can read the minutes and see what's happening.
Councillor,
The minute, this is not.
Councillor McGinn, Councillor Shields.
This feels ridiculous, but I'm going to move a further amendment. We seem to be getting very caught up on the actual words here and whether we're directing staff to do the job they are currently doing. What about, obviously the General Manager's comments are not going to be in the minutes as such. You'd have to read the paper in conjunction. What about we just take out the note the General Manager, so note that consultation with the South West Rocks community regarding the South West Rocks Library and Community Centre has commenced as stated in the 2021 operational plan. If we really need to put something, we could say this includes a Your Say MACLEAY campaign and selective face-to-face meetings. Or I would take counsel on from Lyndall on that. Let's just take out the General Manager's comments part. I don't see the point of saying it's already on Your Say MACLEAY, because then you're going to get people going there, being driven there at the moment, where isn't it more helpful if they're driven by our communications plan to go there so they understand what it's about, they have information regarding it. Council has a very structured communications plan of what goes out every week. Rather than us making policy on the run now and directing people to it, let's let the council staff do their job.
Here.
Thank you, councillors. We now have a foreshadowed amendment.
That's foreshadowed. You got to deal with Bruce's first.
That's foreshadowed. Thank you, Councillor McGinn. So
in fact, Madam Mayor, with Councillor Shields' comments, I'm happy to modify it too slightly and say, acknowledge the online engagement forum has commenced, on Your Say MACLEAY has commenced, that an engagement plan has been established and an engagement plan that includes face-to-face meetings. So take out the date of the 7th of December, because that is really irrelevant. It's now the 15th.
No. Got that? Got that? You happy with that?
That's Councillor Morris. Is that what you're moving, Councillor Morris? Yeah, we've got to deal with that. Yeah.
Okay, councillors, we've got to deal with this amendment. Bearing in mind there's a foreshadowed amendment. You've got to deal with the amendment first. That the gentleman, so you've got it on your screen. Councillor Morris is happy. That's what he wants to move. That's what where the amendment is. Is there any dissent on the amendment? Okay, the amendment has been lost. We now go to we're back to the original motion, but there's a foreshadowed motion by Councillor Shields. Councillor Shields, you have the floor.
So note the General Manager's comments that consultation with the South West Rocks community regarding the South West Rocks Library and Community Centre has commenced in line with the 2021 operational plan.
Why don't I'll paste them what you said when you foreshadowed that, so I did write that down. Okay.
So that we didn't have to refer to the general manager's comment.
So here's what you said when you foreshadowed it.
Madam Mayor, I can't hear anything.
We're just waiting to get the foreshadow motion up on the screen.
There's nothing to hear.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, that was
Sorry, can we go back to what the original one said and just take out the general manager's comments?
yeah, that's pretty much what it said. That's what it was.
Yeah, okay, yep, that's okay then, leave it like that.
Okay, yep.
Sorry, just try to make it quicker. And maybe just another sentence that the communication strategy includes online engagement and face-to-face meetings.
Can we just refer to the comms strategy?
If they're reading the minutes, I don't know what it is though, the comms strategy. If that's what it does include, and that's what seems to be the debate. It's just the councillors seem to be divided on this. I just thought this amendment incorporates a little bit of both, and it does inform the community that there will be particular components to the communication strategy without telling them where and when and all of the specifics that council will be leading.
Councillor Shields, can I just suggest maybe that in point 2, before can you just put note the communication strategy includes?
Yes.
And that way we're not telling the staff to include it.
Sounds
It's
great.
already there.
Again, I'm assuming the
Hang on.
staff would, again.
Councillor Shields, are you happy with your amendment?
Yes.
Because I'll need a seconder.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor McGinn. Okay, I've got no lights on. Thank you. Any dissent on the recommendation?
It's a
The
amendment.
foreshadowed, I'm sorry. Sorry, it's an amendment. Any dissent on the amendment? No, Councillor Horwell has dissented.
Thank you.
It now becomes the motion. I'm going to put any dissent on the motion.
Madam Mayor, may I speak to the motion, please?
Yes, you do. You have the original right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I applaud the support of councillors on this very important issue. It's an issue that the community, and especially the senior citizens of South West Rocks, have engaged in and wanted for a long time. And I put this notice of motion together and sent it to the General Manager on December the 1st. And happily, the engagement people were already working on that, and they came up with what you should have already seen on your say MACLEAY. So it's stepping forward. It's a big event and very important for the community of South West Rocks, and especially for the elderly people. 100, my mistake, I can't add up, I apologise. It's been 36 years since it was first raised with council way back when, and it's coming to fruition depending on our grant funding. So I actually now think what is before us is excellent, and I applaud Councillor Shields for coming up with this amendment. That's now the motion. Well done.
Any dissent? Thank you, Councillor Shields. Any dissent on the motion? No dissent. It's been carried. Thank you. 10.3, review of local purchasing policy. There is a recommendation, Councillor Horval.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's not mine.
Sorry, it's Councillor Morris.
Madam Mayor, I move the recommendation that Council includes a review of its current local purchasing policy in Council's next operating plan to implement some of the initiatives contained in local purchasing policy recently adopted by Dubbo Regional Council.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll discuss it. Talk to it.
I just need a seconder. Do I have a seconder? It's been seconded by Councillor Horval. Councillor Saul?
Yes, Madam
then
Mayor.
Councillor
I wish
McGinn.
to amend this motion if I have your indulgence.
I need Councillor Morris speak first, and then you can.
Councillor McGinn said.
And you want, if you. She said foreshadowed. I've got an amendment. So.
Madam Mayor, I move this amendment, which I have asked that it be considered in the next operating plan. I note the General Manager's comments, which basically says it is scheduled to be done then. I was unaware of that scheduling at the time that I wrote the notice of motion. I would like personally to see some of the initiatives within the Dubbo Regional Council policy brought forward earlier, but in discussions with Director Mitchell, I understand the situation. In the shorter term with the staff pressures, I believe that it does offer some considerable potential enhancements for business opportunity and growth within our local government area. I move this on the basis that it was just recently adopted by Dubbo Regional Council, and I came across it by the way of considerable media exposure to the initiatives that are included in there, particularly that of the notifying the community on a 6-monthly basis of items that council procures are not available locally, and the initiatives with the local Aboriginal communities in providing them additional support specifically. So there's an Indigenous businesses initiative, and there's also an initiative for disabled associations, which I haven't included specifically in the background because I know council works very closely with MACLEAY options in many areas, and I encourage that, but that should probably be included to confirm that intent in the local purchasing policy. I believe that there is potential for change. I haven't asked for it done immediately. I've asked in the next operating plan. The General Manager's comments indicate that the time frame for the review would line up pretty much with 12 months after the next election is 9 months into the next operating plan.
Thank you. Councillor Saul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish to move an amendment with your indulgence.
Thank you, Councillor.
My amendment reads that Council continues with the existing local preference purchasing procedures.
Madam Mayor, point of order, I considered, well, that needs to be considered as to whether it's a direct negative.
So, yeah, a foreshadowed, and Councillor McGinn also had a foreshadowed. I thought it was an amendment, so I'll take it. It's an
amendment which is a direct negative of.
So it's a foreshadowed. So it's a foreshadowed, which is okay. And then Councillor McGinn also had a foreshadowed along the same lines. So we've got a foreshadowed. You want to speak for? You've spoken.
I've already spoken for.
So I need a speaker
because essentially what this calls for is in accordance with the timeline that the General Manager has said has already been adopted, which I was unaware of that timeline when I wrote the notice of motion, and it was prompted simply because of the media exposure and the initiatives that I see that we could have for our local businesses to improve things for their survival and to grow their businesses and their activity.
I'm happy to speak against, if you need a speaker against.
You don't need one, but you're welcome to have your say if you want.
Well, I will speak against, and I'll do it very briefly. Although I understand the intention of Councillor Morris's a recommendation, we do need to make sure that such a policy would not have adverse effects. And I'm thinking of a situation where if we moved a motion like a recommendation like this and our neighbouring councils also moved similar recommendations, then we would not be able to allow for the free flowing across shires of service providers. Our service providers from the MACLEAY or Kempsey Shire Council, LGA, would not be able to work for council on services for another council. And there may, to me, it just would stop healthy competition and the administration of such small under $10,000 contracts would seem onerous to me. So whilst I endorse the idea, I think practically it actually could run into some adverse problems that are just not identified at this stage. So I would be voting against the policy.
Okay. Do I have any
Madam Mayor,
speakers?
can I change the motion slightly?
Yes,
And that
Councillor.
is that council includes a review of its current local purchasing policy in council's next operating plan to consider the implementation of some of the initiatives. Not to implement, but to consider the implementation of some of the initiatives contained. Because that means that, and I've highlighted in the report in the background, that we need to have measures in place to make sure that such things don't occur.
We should always be reviewing.
So how is that different to what we're doing now? So how is that different? Can I ask the question of the General Manager? How is that any different to what we're doing now?
We review it.
Through Madam Mayor, all it's doing is saying that in the process of the review that we would then specifically consider the actions that Dubbo Regional Council have taken in their policy.
So we're bringing, but at the moment it wouldn't change what we're doing with our existing LPPP.
No.
So this has come forward as an urgent or something that we really need to consider now for the next operating plan.
My understanding is what this is asking is that with the next operating plan, we actually, which at the end of this term of council, will review all the policies anyway. So that's just part of the normal process. So it's something that we will be doing after September and probably be early in the subsequent year before we get to these sorts of policies. And all it is actually saying is do that, but specifically to look at the Dubbo Regional Council purchasing policy as well.
Madam Mayor, with your comments, I'm more than happy to again change it and remove the operating plan. And that is that council considers the implementation of some of the initiatives contained in the local purchasing policy recently adopted by Dubbo Regional Council in its next review of the current local purchasing policy. It says the same thing, but it takes out the fact that we're saying we'll put it in operating plan because it's already going to be there.
Again, though, isn't this just business as usual? Like, wouldn't we consider other things, like not only Dubbo, but what other councils might be doing that we find out in the meantime before we review it? But we still can. We're aware of it now. We still can. It's just, motions for the sake of motion sometimes.
Okay, we have a foreshadowed motion in the background here, but we're debating this one right now that's been moved by Councillor Morris and seconded by Councillor Horval. I had a speaker for. I've had a speaker against, which was Councillor McGinn at one stage, but I don't know that she might have changed her mind. And and we have a foreshadowed motion in the background. So I'm going to ask, is there any dissent on this? Actually, Paul.
I'm actually going to abstain on the basis of business.
Telling council to do what they're doing all the time is just ridiculous.
That's 5-4.
So abstaining is a vote again, and that's probably where I was leading. So actually it's been lost. So we're back now to, there's a foreshadowed motion, which will become the motion. The council continues to, what was it?
Madam Mayor, the council continues with existing local preference purchasing procedures. Madam Alfie.
Do I have a seconder?
Madam Mayor, the motion, with all due respect to Councillor Saul, is superfluous. That's what we do anyway. We continue it. It's actually not needed. What you've actually done is voted essentially against the actual original notice of motion, and the matter should be just concluded there.
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to withdraw.
Withdrawn. Okay, we've got nothing on the books. Good, let's move on. Okay, proposed motion for local government conference 2021. There's a recommendation. Councillor Morris.
Madam Mayor, the Council considers the submission of the following motion of the Local New South Wales Conference to be held in Sydney from the 16th to 18th of November 2020, being that local government New South Local Government New South Wales calls on the Federal Government to remove Part 1, Section 6.2b of Local Government Financial Assistance Act 1995 to remove the minimum per capita amount grant, with this removal being phased in over an 8-year period.
Councillor.
Second that.
You're seconding. Do you wish to speak?
Madam Mayor, that this motion was considered at the Local Government New South Wales Conference. It was narrowly defeated, surprisingly narrowly defeated compared to what it has been previously. It has been adopted by at the National Assembly of the Australian Local Government Association. Without New South Wales, Local Government New South Wales and generally New South Wales Council supporting this initiative, the chances of it getting up are lower. The period of 8 years could be varied or could be up to discussion. I've worded it in such a way in the background that, and I've in the motion that we consider it, so it goes onto a list to be reviewed prior to the submission. If there is action that actually happens beforehand, or if the council at the time they're submitting it decides that a 4-year period would be better, that's all there, but it's documented as one that we intend to put in for the next Local Government New South Wales Conference.
No questions. Do I have any dissent? It's through. It's been carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Morris. Stewart's Point Tennis Court. Councillor Morris.
Madam Mayor, by a code of meeting practice, I have to actually move what's written there, or can I move
Absolutely you can.
a changed one? Because if I have to move that, I'll move it, but then I'll move an amendment which will vary it.
You can vary it.
My recommendation is that Council acknowledges the actions of Council staff in implementing a management arrangement for the Stewart's Point Tennis Courts with an intended commencement date of the 18th of December 2020, and that 2, that the interim management arrangement remain in place until a licence for the Stewart's Point Tennis Courts is finalised.
Can I have a question on that, Madam Mayor? I have a question.
Yes, Councillor.
Through you to General Manager, is this not already done and being done?
Yes, the arrangements are in place. They will come into effect this Friday, and we will then go through the EIO process, and we'd keep those interim arrangements in place until that's actually completed.
But voting for this notice motion actually means or does nothing.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor.
We don't actually have a seconder.
No, we don't. But the reason why we don't actually is because Councillor Morris was changing what is actually there, and I was just trying to make, that's true. I was just trying to get it on the screen, and I don't know that I called did I ask Councillor Patterson to speak?
Yeah, you did. You allowed him to talk.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, Councillor.
I
upheld your point of order.
And I haven't had the opportunity to speak to it yet either.
I will need a seconder, but it's a bit hard to read. I don't know if everyone else's screen's a bit woozy. Okay, so what is going to be put by Councillor Morris, which we will need a seconder for, is that Council acknowledges the actions of Council staff in implementing a management arrangement for the Stewart's Point Tennis Courts with a commencement date of the 18th of December, and that the interim management arrangements remain in place until a licence for the Stewart's Point Tennis Court is finalised.
Daniel, would you the spelling of finalised to be English instead of American?
And that has been seconded.
Madam Mayor, when I put up this notice of motion...
Councillor Horville seconded it.
When I put up this notice of motion...
I believe, just a sec, yeah. Councillor Horville, you did second this, did you?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to make I'll address the motion. When I put up this notice of motion, to the best of my knowledge, there was the action to implement the management plan, or that the management agreement for the Stewart's Point tennis court hadn't commenced. The community hadn't been approached. It is since the receipt of the notice of motion that council staff, and I thank them very much for that, have progressed to providing a notification of the termination of the lease with the current leasee, and have since contacted the hall committee at Stewart's Point in regard to managing it under an arrangement as part of the section 355 for the hall. I believe 2 could be removed, but I would just like to think that we should be acknowledging the actions of the council staff in implementing the management arrangement, given that the circumstances have changed since the since the lodgement of the notice of motion.
I have a seconder. Yes, I have got a seconder. Is there any dissent? Oh, there's no one else speaking. Any dissent? No dissent. One dissent. Okay.
I'm abstaining as well.
Okay.
Can we just get a clear? Can we just, Madam Mayor, can we just get a clear indication of that voting again for those voting in dissent? Put their hands up. No dissent. Those abstaining. Dissent. Councillor Patterson. Abstaining. McGinn, Williams, Sol, Shields. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Williams. Yeah. So it's defeated.
So that's lost.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Mayor, I'll move an amendment, which is just point 1 with point 2 removed.
Okay. Doesn't matter. He's got a right to.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Your point of order?
Madam Mayor, it came up as carried and now it's changed to lost. Would the people who abstain, their votes, they are not voting for or against, would it be technically correct if they left the room, their voting would not be counted as against?
Yeah.
I'll just take governance on that, but I think you'll find.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the councillors are in the room, and because they have abstained, they are actually seen as voting against.
That's how it works.
Yes, I understand, Madam Mayor, but if they had left the room, they would not have been counted.
Thank you,
That point
Councillor.
is mute.
Yes.
Councillor Morris, you've got another amendment.
It's just point 1 with point 2 removed.
You can
Oh,
do
it's
that.
been lost, I suppose, so I didn't get in before it was voted on, so I'll leave it as it is, yeah.
So you're just going to leave it as.
Well, I can't because it has technically been voted on, so it's been
Yes.
determined, sorry.
Yeah. So we're moving on. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. We're moving on to Councillor, what are we doing? 10.6.
Madam Mayor.
So it's been moved and it's been seconded.
Madam Mayor, I move the motion. It's fairly lengthy, so I don't think it's in the best interest of reading it out unless you would prefer me to do that. The recommendation is fairly lengthy, but it effectively means that we seek a variation to the Office of Local Government Model Code of Meeting Practice to allow councils to choose existing clauses on speeches so that we can limit it to two minutes, or councils can select to leave it at 5. And it gives the opportunity to extend on particular items to 5 minutes if they're complex items, or to vary down to a minimum of 1 minute. The current code doesn't mention a minimum. You can just, it does say 2 minutes. It also asks that we write to the local member and the Minister for Local Government in pursuing that change. If I get a seconder, I suppose I can speak to it.
It's already been seconded. There's no problem with that.
After attending the Local Government New South Wales conference by Zoom, the limit there is 2 minutes. And a lot of people spoke for 2 minutes, but I don't think they actually added anything to their discussion or to the debate after about 1 minute. I know I spoke to an amendment that Council put up, and I spoke for 35 seconds. And I think I managed to argue it quite strongly and quite well because it was actually adopted and accepted by the conference. And like I said, I honestly believe that if you're well prepared, you can prosecute a case very well within 2 minutes. Unless it's an extremely complex matter with many points in it, and then with what's here, council can vary it to 5 minutes. I just hope that, and maybe we should change it, and that formally request that the LG change it, but not in their normal review, but as a special one-off change. And I don't know whether we should modify it slightly to express that it be considered as an extraordinary review item rather than a standard review procedure. I think it's going to take 2 years or 3 years before they review the next code of meeting practice.
Madam Mayor, the reading of the motion the way it is actually, yeah, would allow them to consider it straight away anyway.
Okay, any dissent?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to speak against it.
Yes, Councillor Horval.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Today we're operating with a limit of 2 minutes, and only one person has spoken longer than that. But the option of restricting it to 2 minutes is all very well and good intention, but sometimes people need to speak longer than 2 minutes on an issue, and I'm not sure why we need to come back to 2 minutes. 5 minutes has been the standing time for so long. I don't see the need to vary it. If you do a forensic examination of council meetings and time each one, you'll find that very few people speak over 2 minutes. They make their point and get off the stage, and that's what we can do. But sometimes there's issues and things that need to be raised, and it might go over 2 minutes. So I'm opposing this for the simple reason, leave it alone. It's fine as it is, and it complicates life if we have to go through this process of changing our model, our code of meeting practice.
Thank you, Councillor. Any dissent? There's 2 dissent. It's been carried. Thank you, councillors. We now go to questions on notice.
Do we have a result on that? Oh, there
we don't. I'm sorry. I completely missed a notice of motion. Thank you, Councillor Morris.
Madam Mayor, I move that council conducts a workshop to consider any motions for consideration at the Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference at least 2 months prior to the conference, and then conducts a pre-conference workshop to review the conference business paper to provide guidance to voting delegates and to prepare any proposed amendments. If I have a seconder, I'll speak to that.
Councillor Horval, the seconding.
I'll second it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Morris.
Madam Mayor, I know that this year we had a workshop prior to, but that was after a request for such. I'd like to think that it is routinely scheduled into our calendar. And at the Local Government New South Wales Conference, I know that the Mayor, myself and the General Manager sat down and wrote an amendment whilst we were listening to the other presentations, which was successful because there were concerns raised by the General Manager about the severe potential for cost shifting with one of the motions, which was varied. All amendments at the last meeting, and from recollection at the Local Government New South Wales Conference beforehand, had to be submitted by email prior to the matter being considered, or the amendment had to be lodged by email prior to the matter. I know that I believe it would be good for the voting delegates to sit around with all the councillors, and all the councillors have some input to raise issues, concerns or matters that they may see with some of the motions, and provide guidance as to what is considered to be the best for our broader community. I request that it be considered because particularly point 2, I believe, would be very valuable in the future.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have any questions? Any speakers? Councillor Saul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll speak against the motion if I may. Madam Mayor, in the past, unless an item has really gotten a councillor concerned, most times the delegates have voted. I believe having extra workshops, extra stress on staff, extra cost. The present time, if something comes up in business paper and you wish to speak to a delegate and give he or her your opinion, I think it's fine. Having more workshops, again, is just, again, more expense and more time. Those who have businesses and are working are giving up their time again. So I would imagine standing status quo stays in place, and that we allow ourselves the option of, if a concern on the business paper concerns you enough, approach a delegate and go from there.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This could be through to the General Manager. Would this not be business of the new council in relation to this, as the election for the council in timing wise, there'll be lots of councillors here that will be doing pre-election stuff in relation to wanting to be re-elected. Also having to have this done as well at the same time. I think it makes more sense for the new council to have a workshop, which, if I remember rightly, that's what we do. That's what a new council does have in relation to the local government conference.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, that is normally what occurs. The timing of the election and the timing of the conference makes this particular one a little bit different, in that we'd probably be wanting to consider motions with this council, and then the new council would want to be confirming those, because they won't have a lot of time once they're the declaration of the poll, in the third week, say, of September, to actually then be getting them in. So it's quite probable you'd actually have a workshop with this council with some draft motions, which would then be considered at a workshop with the new council. Once they are actually formalised and the business paper is actually released, what would happen from this, if council were to adopt this, we would then have a workshop again to go through the business paper to help provide the council delegates, the voting delegates, with some guidance on how they should vote.
I'm going to speak. Have we had a speaker for? We have a speaker against. We've had a speaker against. I'd need another speaker for me to speak against, which I will leave that.
Well, Madam Mayor, I'll speak for, so you can speak.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councillor.
I think this is a good idea to have a workshop and get people ready for local government New South Wales. We've been attempting to do this for a number of years. We actually had a success this year in getting some motions up, and it will inform people of what the local council and the local community would like to see in the future of local councils, and that's what our local government New South Wales annual conference does, puts things up that are necessary. And so therefore I support the motion as is before us. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I find it difficult to speak against it in a way, because I take on board what Councillor Morris did say, and that was a different type of meeting to have it by Zoom. And as far as item number 1 goes, that Council conducts a workshop to consider any motions, which is what we did this year, which is standard practice, which is what I imagine, well, I don't imagine, I know we'll be doing before the next council, because they have to be in on time. And if we do put up suggestions, then we will have a workshop. And I imagine it would be the same as what we've done before in the councillor briefing session for that month. As far as conducts a pre-conference workshop to review the conference business papers. Now, I think there was, Councillor Morris probably knows the right number, but there was a couple of hundred motions I'm at the last conference. About 180, 100. I know how long it takes us to do a business paper that has about 12 items. For us to do a workshop on one that does conference business paper that's got nearly 200, I don't know. I think that would be something I'd have to really consider. And I think that conversation can come out of what happens as our standard practice as workshop to consider any motions that we do have as standard practice. And that, not that I don't believe there's some merit in what's being said, I believe that it will be covered.
Madam Mayor, can I just make a comment? Whilst I agree, yes, there are a large number of motions within the conference business paper, In the last one, there probably would have only been half a dozen to a dozen that I had question marks about. And I would suggest if we are going to have a pre-conference workshop of the business paper, the councillors that are attending should have gone through the business paper and should have already marked which ones they have concerns about. Equally, the general manager would have gone through the business paper and marked which ones he has potentially concerns about, which is exactly what happened when we discussed that one highly topical item when the other presentations were on. So yes, if we were to go through all 200 or all 180, yes, it would take a considerable amount of time. But I believe we'd only be looking at 10 or 12 motions at the maximum. And it's more about preparing any or identifying some that may need amendments to protect our community or councils in general about cost shifting.
So that actually closed debate. So that closed debate. So is there any dissent on the notice of motion? Thank you, councillors. For Councillor Horval and the people that aren't in the room, the dissent was from Councillor Patterson, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Shields, Councillor Saul, Councillor Williams, I don't know. It was dissent, and so it was Councillor McGinn. It's now on the board. For was Councillor Baxter, Horval and Morris. So thank you, councillors. That was the last of the notice of motions, and we now go to questions on notice. Councillor Shields, I'll start with you. Councillor Saul.
Yes, Madam Mayor, just two brief questions, if I may. Will council take action in regards to Ryan Cut being cleaned prior to next year's flood season? You know, it'll come again. It's only the beginning. It'll come again.
The second question.
And the second question is, can council seek a clean-up of 154 Tozer Street?
Point of order, councillors. No back conversation. Thank you.
Can council consider a clean-up order for 154 Tozer Street, West Kempsey?
Councillor Williams. Councillor McGinn. Councillor Morris.
Microphone.
What events, activities or experiences are proposed to be held with the summer fun grants that were recently announced, with all New South Wales councils being eligible for up to $10,000 in funding to provide free events, activities or experiences to enliven local public spaces this summer? What projects have council determined as suitable to apply for grants for the revitalisation of our high streets? What projects have council either applied for grant funding or plan to submit for grant funding under the Bushfire Local Infrastructure Recovery Fund? When is it anticipated that community catch-up meetings will be able to recommence? Given that the grant application for Pipers Creek Road upgrade under the Safer Roads program was overlooked in the quarterly report to the November 2020 Ordinary Council meeting, have any other recent grant applications been overlooked for inclusion in the quarterly report at the previous meeting? Or in the previous quarterly report? Can council undertake a clean-up of the gardens and medians on the approach along Macleay Valley Way in South Kempsey prior to the Christmas New Year period? What is the current status of the upgrade to council's new web page, and when will transition to the new web page occur? That's all I've got at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have the one question. Can council request the owner of the traffic island leading into Big W service station, car park, etc., off Smith Street, can council request them to repair it as it's an ongoing safety issue as it's broken?
Thank you, Councillor Horval.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've emailed Mr. Thorogood the question I've got, and there's a slight change there. My question is, with the recent advice that the Kempsey LGA has one of the highest incidences of melanoma in Australia, needs to be corrected, is there any plan or costings to install shade structures over the many newly installed playgrounds across the Shire? Slight changes there, Mr. Thorogood. Did you want me to repeat it, Madam Mayor?
No.
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Councillor McGinn has moved that we go into
Second that.
confidential set, and that's been seconded by Councillor Saul. We'll now go into confidential.
I will now read the resolutions that were taken in closed session. In regards to item 11.1, Council resolved that the information be noted. In regards to item 11.2, Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes, 11th November 2020, Council resolved the Council note the draft meeting minutes from the Audit and Risk Committee, 11th November 2020. In regards to item 11.3, Plant and Truck Hire Contract, Council resolved to appoint to the wet and dry plant and truck hire panel the following 47 contractors. Those 47 contractors are displayed on the screen. These contractors are appointed to the panel for a period of 2 years from 1 January 2021 to 31 December 2022, with 2 one-year extension options, taking the final option to 31 December 2024.
Thank you, councillors. That concludes the meeting, and I believe the live stream will be